dollars equivalent worth of Steem funds seized from him. 25,000 on May 21st. Marky, thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's quickly we're gonna run through the timeline of what's going on here with Steem.it and Justin Sun's recently acquisition. We're just gonna go through the major events here. Okay, so this all started February 24th, 2020. Tron acquired Steem.it, and for those that don't know, yeah, Marky, quickly, can you just tell us what Steem and what Steem.it is, just for those that don't know?
There's a big confusion about it because the company name is Steem.it, and then the blockchain is Steem, and then the currency is Steem. So a lot of people mix the three of them up in different ways, like they call it the Steem.it blockchain or whatever. But Steem is the currency or token, the crypto token. Steem is also the name of the blockchain behind it. It's actually based on what's called graphene, which is used by Hive as well as Steem, as well as a few other projects like Scorum and stuff like that use the graphene blockchain as well. They forked off of Steem. Then Steem.it is the company that was owned by Ned Scott and then was purchased by Justin Sun.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that rundown. And Steem is the original intended purpose of Steem is to give contributors basically compensation for producing content. Is that pretty much what it was for?
Yes, it's a social media platform that works the blockchain is based on posts, which can be a comment or a post. And that's the core part of the blockchain, but there's other functionality where you can transfer funds, and other people have taken advantage of that to build games like Splinterlands and stuff like that, to build collectible card games based on it.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for that rundown. Okay, let's get right into the timeline here. I really want to make sure we get the facts down. So February 24th, the Tron Foundation acquired Steem.it. Then about a month later, on March 20th, there is a Hive, the hard fork on Steem.it where where the Hive community was formed to branch off that because they were worried about Justin Sun's involvement in Steem.it and the voting power that he acquired the voting power he acquired of Steem, the blockchain itself, when he acquired Steem.it. So then on April 3rd, April 4th, that timeline, there was another hard fork 228.
Soft fork.
Oh, excuse me, this was a soft fork. Thank you. Soft fork 22888, which froze major accounts on the Steem.it platform. Many of these accounts, and why were these accounts frozen at this time?
They said that they posed a threat to the governance of Steem, which is ironic because Justin Sun came in and basically did exactly that. They took over Steem and pushed out all the community voted witnesses and put in sock puppets. Literally, these were not people. These were just dummy accounts that were created instantly and then just placed in the top 20 using his voting power. Then he collaborated with exchanges to take over the platform.
Got it. Okay, so that was April 3rd, April 4th, that time frame. Then on
a key thing about what happened there was they collaborated with exchanges, which forced customers' funds to be powered up and locked for 13 weeks, and used that power to take over Steem.
Yes.
That's how they took the community witnesses.
Got it. Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit here. So Justin Sun, with the Tron Foundation's acquisition of Steem.it, acquired about 20% of the voting, or 20% of the
market share.
Of the market share.
A little over that, but
okay. At that time, they got 20%. Then you're saying they were able to gain more voting share power based on working with the exchanges?
Yes, the 20% was roughly 73 million Steem. That's what they purchased under the table through Ned Scott and stuff like that in the infrastructure, which they were doing. But what happened was when the community fought back and actually, have a screenshot somewhere, but basically when the community started voting witnesses to recover our standings, the community started, a lot of people started voting, which prior to this situation, not a lot of people voted in terms of how many users we had. A lot of people just didn't bother voting for witnesses.
Right.
Once this happened, the community stepped up and tons of people started voting witnesses, trying to recover the real community witnesses to the top 20 spots. And at one point, we had 11 people in the top 20, even after he used that 73 million to overtake Steem. Once we did that and we held a decent position where we can prevent a hard fork as well as a soft fork, and I'll explain what the difference is in a second, they decided to collaborate with exchanges, 3 exchanges, Hubai, Binance, and Polynex being one of the exchanges that Justin owns,
Okay.
and had them power up their funds for about 55 million Steem, I think it was, and use that as additional voting to push us out.
I see. So it wasn't that the people that had the funds locked on these exchanges, they weren't stolen, but they were used to vote.
Yes, and what happened was the exchanges had no liquidity because the Steem that was customer funds that they were basically responsible for was powered up without their permission and locked for 13 weeks. And then we had meetings with Justin Sun on Zoom, and this guy Roy basically begging us to allow an instant power down for those accounts so they can basically reverse that mistake they made.
And is this built into the protocol that if there's a vote done, you can't? It basically locks these locks the Steem in the wallet for 13 weeks. Is that the idea?
There's a transaction called vesting or staking, which is what it's normally called in most platforms, and the only way to vote for witnesses and vote for content is to have staked Steem. We call it Steem power. So once you stake it, you cannot unstake it for 13 weeks. It takes 13 weeks to power down, and every week you get 1/13 of what you had. So let's say you had 100,000 Steem liquid on your account, you'd have $0 to vote with. Your witness vote would mean nothing. Now, once you stake that 100,000, you would have voting power equivalent to how many vests that is worth.
Got
It's
it.
called 100,000 Steem power, but technically on the platform, Steem power doesn't exist. It's called vests.
Got it. Okay, so you had this Zoom call where they begged, they tried to get, they tried to prevent this 13-week lockup period, and what happened on that Zoom call?
They didn't try to prevent it. They tried to erase it. They wanted to reverse what they did. The exchanges were putting a lot of pressure on them to get this Steem power because they didn't know what they got into. From what I understand, they were given a script to say, "Hey, run this. This is a critical emergency hard fork."
Wow.
And then they did that.
And when they did that, it locked up their user. It basically locked up the
the liquidity.
all the liquidity. So if I
Froze it.
had Steem on one of these exchanges, I basically couldn't get it.
Yes. And
Got
then
it.
what was happening is a lot of people were trying to power out, or not power out, but withdraw Steem from the exchanges, and they couldn't because it was locked up. And then,
Right.
they were begging us for weeks to release them, giving them an instant power down just for their accounts, just for the exchanges, and potentially even Justin. And that was the ask they were going for. And we have recorded video or audio calls that we had with them
Right.
talking about this that were actually put online, the recordings for these calls, and it was pretty much them just begging to get an instant power down for special accounts only.
Got it. And where did Justin's son fall in this debate? He was in these calls?
He was in the AMA, and then there was a person called Roy who was basically acting as his liaison.
Got it.
And then
and
at some point he was replaced by another guy, David, who kept saying win, win, win. Yeah, he was going to try to do a win-win, and then he disappeared.
he disappeared.
I
And
have a kind of the funny meme. You know that meme where there's a car going on a highway and really quickly taking off on the exit? And I have a
Right.
picture of him with Steem and then Tron, and then it has Roy driving, and he's like veering off because he basically just disappeared out of nowhere.
Right, nice. And so these liaisons were were also wanting this lock up to be I forgot the word you used, but basically undo it.
Yes, they were basically wanted a hard fork that would forgive the power down and release the funds immediately to liquid Steem again,
Got it. Got it.
which is a protocol that we don't have. And that would involve two hard forks. It would be a hard fork to power down them within 3 days or whatever the period was. They
Right.
wanted something like 24 hours or 3 days.
Right.
And then another one to reverse that functionality so no one can do it again.
Okay.
So it
Cool.
would require two hard forks.
Got it. And this did this end up happening?
No, we fought against it because it was a huge security risk. Plus, it was something that we weren't comfortable with giving certain people special powers to do that.
Totally.
But it was also a huge security risk to do that because the code would need to be tested, and they had no interest in doing that. And all the developers quit. So for Steam, all the developers at this point quit Steam. They made posts saying we're no longer working for Steam, and we left.
Oh, really? Now, just to be clear, are these developers on Steemit or on Steam?
They're on Steam as the platform. They're the usernames, but they were Steam employees.
Got it. Got
And
it.
They all quit one by one. The only person that didn't quit was Ellie Powell, who ran Steam. She basically took over as Ned's job, and then Justin Welch, who was an not a developer, but infrastructure engineer. So he stayed on board for a while, and he recently just quit right before this hard fork. Likely saw what was happening with the stealing of funds and wanted no part of it and left. But I have no reason why. But it was shortly before the announcement of the hard fork that he left.
And this hard fork you're talking about is when
The recent one.
the recent
that
one
just
on May
happened.
20th.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And just to zoom out for a second. So that what you were talking about with those exchanges, that was voting that Justin Sun was trying to get those exchanges to vote. That was to freeze those major accounts, and then was that vote that
No, that wasn't for that. The voting of the exchanges was for him to take over Steam.
Got it. Okay. So
The
got it.
freezing of funds is the community witnesses, the sock puppet rogue witnesses that took over, mostly Korean users that had the most power on Steam at that time. They were pandered to by Sun. He used to go in their Discord and basically beg them for voting power to vote his witnesses, trying to overtake the community witnesses. Because at that point, we started voting, more users started participating in the voting.
Right.
Trying to save Steam at the time.
Right. So were those major accounts that were targeted? Were those successfully frozen?
Yes.
Got
they
it.
were soft fork.
Got it.
In Frozen. What basically happened was they reused our soft fork, and what that did was freeze the ability to make transfers, to power up, to power down, to vote for witnesses, to delegate, and the core functionality to do anything with a stake. So that stake could be used to do anything. In this one case, there's a user called Darth Knight who had 2 million Steam, was a brand new user account.
Yep.
That powered up 2 million Steam to help protect Steam at the time, and vote community witnesses. His account was frozen. So prior to the soft fork, when he knew he was going to have his account frozen, he set up withdrawal route. So when you power down Steam, it goes back into your account as liquid Steam.
Right.
You can set a withdrawal route to have that Steam go somewhere else and have to worry about mistakenly losing it or someone stealing it or whatever. It lowers your risk level.
Right.
It's a trick to, if you're worried about your funds being stolen, you send it right to Bittrex. That way you know no one's going to freeze the account Bittrex. But he misspelled it, and he didn't have time to fix it. By the time he realized he misspelled it, after many of us contacted him, he went in to fix it, and his account was already frozen. So 2 million Steam was sent to a hacker's account, somebody that used an account name that had a very close spelling to Bittrex.
Oh, wow.
People.
Wow.
And currently, there was over 1 million Steam in that account. It was about halfway done through its power down before this recent freezing. So he basically had all those funds sent to a fisher, basically someone that was trying to fish money out of people by misspellings. This is a common trick. There used to be bid bots on Steam where you can buy votes, and these names were used very often, and people would type them in by hand to type in the username and then type in the amount they want to send and then their post URL. And then people would make accounts that had the same spelling very close to it, or common misspellings.
Right.
And people would send a few bucks there, here and there every so often. But then this account got 2 million Steem as a result of this mistake, and he couldn't fix it.
Right.
Because his account was frozen.
Right. Okay. So, and was this Fisher associated with? Was this just a rogue hacker? Was this associated with?
Yes. Just
okay. Just a rogue hacker. Got it.
It is. Unfortunately, the user was AFK because even though that money was going through his account, he didn't withdraw it, and he hasn't done a transaction in like a year or 2 years. So he made the account and then kind of forgot about it. There was a couple bucks in it because a couple people made some mistakes.
Right.
Probably like $30-$40 in it.
Right. And then then he or she got a huge payout. And for all we know, they don't even know that this happened to their account.
Yeah, he's probably left Steam and no longer bothers with it. He'd probably check back eventually. But this was one of the accounts that was stripped of funds, nullified recently.
Got it.
So now
okay.
the funds are gone.
Now the funds are gone. Got it. Okay, so just getting back on the timeline here. So May 20th, so this is a couple days ago, is when the Steam hard fork seized the Steem from any of the accounts that supported the Hive hard fork. Is that true?
Yes. Yes.
Got it.
Like 64 accounts or so.
64 accounts.
23.6 million Steem.
23, and which is about what was that, like $5 million US equivalent, something like that.
It was $5 million, but then there was a pump and it went up to about 7.5 million.
Got it. Okay.
Value.
And then, and this is when your funds were seized.
Yes.
And it wasn't only that your funds were seized; also all your comments and all your posts on the Steem.it platform were erased.
Those have been gone for a long time. If you look at my username, I was a prolific blogger.
Right.
I posted on pretty much every day, and I engaged with a lot of people. I was very active, present, and passionate about Steam, and I spent a lot of time commenting and helping people and engaging with posts, and all those were erased months ago. So if you went to my account, it looks like I never posted.
So those were erased.
It says this person hasn't made his first post yet.
Right, and then those were erased. When was that? Before or after the Tron Foundation acquired Steem.it?
After. They weren't erased. What they did is they hacked the back end to not show them.
Because they're still on the blockchain.
Exist. Yes.
They're still on the. Got it.
If you create your own node, a full node that interacts with the blockchain,
right,
and then you make your own front end, you can actually see them.
Got it. So this
by using their their interfaces, you couldn't see it. Then later on, they changed it so even if you weren't using their interface, you used SteamPeak, which was a third-party front end, you couldn't see it either.
And how are they able to compromise SteamPeak?
What they did is they changed their nodes to not display it. So it was for anyone that used their nodes.
Got it. Okay.
Back-end nodes, so what's called full nodes.
Got it. So this other platform wasn't running its own. It was referencing their nodes instead of running their own.
Yes.
And is this a typical way to do it because it's easier, I assume?
Well, they did use other public nodes, but they all shut down because people stopped supporting Steem.
Got it.
Most
Okay.
of the people that ran services were the ones that were attacked.
Got it.
So they said, we're not going to support Steem anymore. So they shut their nodes down, and the only node
Steem that was seized from you and the 60 other some odd accounts, they sent that anonymous actor sent that Steem to Bitrex with the intention of giving it back to the original owners, i.e., you and the others.
Yes, they sent it to Bittrex in hope that they would send it to the correct people. Of course, that's a legal nightmare and a protocol nightmare for Bittrex.
Totally. So Bittrex made the announcement, and I couldn't see. I saw that there was a blog post that was linked. I think it was referenced in a Decrypt article, but the Bittrex blog post, I couldn't find it. But it said that
taken down.
It was taken down, but they basically can you corroborate that they basically announced that they're not going to be returning the funds to you and the others?
There was two announcements they made. The first one you still should be able to find, and they basically said they are aware of the situations. They're looking into it. They have no decision at this point. The second announcement was saying that they have looked into it, and basically gave an overview of what happened, saying that we received a transfer for this much. And then they basically said that they're going to have to go with what the consensus of the blockchain is. Basically, Justin Sun's vote
Right.
voted in the top 20. So one vote controlled the entire blockchain. So instead of being a decentralized platform where we have 20 plus witnesses that are run by 20 plus people and 20 plus unique views and talents.
Totally.
It's run by one person that votes in whoever will do whatever he wants. And there's been talks that if you want to be a witness, there's a process. You contact them and they run you through a series of Zoom calls with Tron employees to interview you.
Right.
And one of the questions I heard was, will you push through any hard fork we give you? So basically, they were basically grooming these witnesses to do whatever he says, kind of like what Tron is, where he owns a large portion of Tron, the majority of it.
So why even bother bringing in these bringing in witnesses and interviewing them? Why not just set up 20 accounts that Justin Sun controls directly?
They did do that, but then he kept saying he wants no parts of governance. He wants to release it back to the community. He kept saying that since day one, but yet that's the opposite of what he's done. He's controlled the vote ever since he's been here.
Right.
So I think what happened was he started getting some Korean users to side with him, and he voted them in as witnesses. AAA, Zhang, Justy, who I believe is Chinese, but there's a WeChat that they use privately to discuss these things and collaborate. So, for example, you can give out delegation where you can rent your Steam power or give it out for free to users, and they get the full power of that Steam power.
Right.
And they can use that for voting. They can't use it for witnesses, but they can use it for voting rewards and making money. And what Justin Sun did early on was remove the delegation to almost everybody. And then he just randomly gave 1 million Steam power to a user called Bullion Stackers, who's a farmer and a racist. And he hasn't talked on a blockchain in over a year. He hasn't made a single post or comment.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he get 1 million Steam power, which is the largest delegation they gave out. And he went around and flagged anybody that was pro-Hive and basically removed all their rewards and, in many cases, destroyed their rep. Took their reputation points from like 50, 60 to 0 or negative. And then he started using it to farm comments at the last minute, right before they paid out. He would vote it 100% for $20 each and make rewards off of that. So it was very shady what happened there. And then he also gave 500K to Justy, who is another farmer who is a top one witness now on Steam. And there's a lot of shady stuff that went on where they were building a kind of an echo chamber and a cult, basically.
Right. And when you say farmer, what do you mean by farmer?
Okay, so on Steam, you make a post and then the community decides what it's worth by voting on it.
Right.
What a farmer will do is they'll make a comment or a post that's very low effort, and then they will self-vote it for a lot of money with their voting power or collaborate with other people.
Got it.
In Bullion Stacken's case, he would make a comment, which generally it's frowned upon voting comments, and then he'd vote it for like 20 different accounts that he owned.
Got it. Okay. So I want to shift a little bit to where do we go from here? So do you think Bittrex? So Bittrex is basically going to. Are they going to give the funds back to Justin Sun, back to his control?
We don't know.
Okay.
I think what's going to happen, if I was to guess, and I have no information whether or not they're going to do this, but my guess is it's going to go back to Community 321, that account. And I don't know who owns that account at this point.
Got it.
It could be under Justin Sun's control, it could be under one of the rogue witnesses' control, or it could be under the Robin Hood that people are calling its control.
Right.
Um,
So if Bittrex says, "Listen, I don't want any part of this. I'm going to send it back to Community 321," and they're just going to wipe their hands clean of it, and then we don't know what's, and to your point, we don't know what's going to happen to those funds. Maybe they'll be,
right.
maybe they're the Robinhood still has control of them. Maybe they don't. It'd surprise me if when they seize the funds from you and others, they send it to an account they didn't have control over. That seems pretty. That seems surprising to
Yeah.
me.
That's really we've been trying to figure out what happened there.
Right.
But that is something that's weird, and it could be somebody that had a change of heart. I know right before the hard fork, a lot of the witnesses stepped down. They claimed that they were being threatened and harassed, which I think is not accurate. I think what they happened is they got scared because there's some legal issues with this. Well, a lot of legal issues with what they did. They basically stole $7 million,
Right.
and they used a blockchain to facilitate that using Justin Sun's vote, which was a pure the only reason why they were able to do it.
Right.
And I think they got nervous about because we have contact information for a lot of these witnesses for legal reasons. So I think they got nervous and they backed down, and then they had new witnesses created that were created instantly, new usernames that just started on Steem, then were instantly voted by these old witnesses and by Steem and Inc. to push them up in the top 20 to replace them. So they basically were taking the human witnesses out and putting sock puppets in. But I
Got
believe
it.
these sock puppets represented the old human witnesses that claimed to be backing down. Like a few of them backed down all at the same time.
And what's the significance of being a top 20 witness for those that aren't familiar with Steem or Steem
Okay,
it?
so a
Yep.
top 20 witness makes about 800% more than most other witnesses. So it's a huge difference, but they are also the consensus witnesses. They're the ones that can enact change. They're the ones that verify
Got it.
transactions. And when a transaction goes through on a blockchain, 17 witnesses have to verify it and witness that block to confirm that it fits all the rules that we set.
Right.
Once 17 out of the 20 have confirmed it, it becomes a confirmed transaction. This happens under a minute. It's 3-second block time. So at first, when you send funds in 3 seconds, it'll be available, but it can be rolled back within those 17 witnesses blocks. 17 times 3 seconds. It could be rolled back if any of them say this transaction is not valid.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Thanks for explaining that. So just to keep going, so where do we go? Where are you and the people that you're working with go from here? Are you guys all going all in on Hive? Do you think have you basically just turned your back on Steem and or excuse me, rather Steem and Steem it at this point, and said, okay, we're going to make our new home at Hive?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've all done. Most of us on Steem are basically powering down and trying to get out of Dodge as fast as possible, and that's pretty much the extent of it. Which makes the irony of what they're doing rather interesting and comical. Is most of us are trying to get out. We're getting weaker on Steem by the day. Every week that our power down happens, we have less and less influence. And
Right.
almost every single person on that list is powering down and selling, and that's what they're trying to stop. They're trying to stop us from selling our Steem and getting out of the platform. But we're losing influence, and then they come over and take all the funds when we're losing influence, which is the complete opposite of what they're saying. They're saying that they were doing it to protect because we pose a threat, but every day that went by, we're posing less and less of a threat because we have no Steem power to do anything. And all of it comes up, or I forget what her name, Padme, came up and said, "I vote no confidence." That's basically my stance of it. I decided that I no longer trust the platform and I want out. But interesting enough, and I've said this before, the day I started my power down was shortly after the Ask Me Anything, which I nicknamed the Ask Me Nothing.
And what day was
Ned
that?
and Justin. I don't know. That was in February.
February. Okay, so this was early on.
Yeah. At that point, when I had that, went through that AMA, I realized we're screwed.
Right.
Justin's son doesn't care about the platform. He doesn't even understand it. He was calling it Steamy instead of Steem,
Right.
which we used to joke about. And then he was also calling SMTs MSTs. He obviously had no idea what he purchased. Ned didn't give him a full disclosure, or he knew what was happening, but he chose not to worry about it. And we knew that things weren't going to go well. So at that point, I pulled my delegation, which takes 5 days. And then when those 5 days were done, I started powering down. And I planned on exiting. And at that point, I had no ill will against Steam. I was like, I'm perfectly fine if they do well and they take off in parallel with what we're doing. We knew we were building Hive at that point. I had no problems with it.
Right.
It wasn't until they started censoring accounts and freezing funds where at that point I had zero interest in Steam, and I had no interest in them being successful because at that point they became evil.
Right.
They were basically hiding accounts, stealing funds, and then I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible at that point. In that point, I stopped posting. I stopped doing much of anything on Steam. I was just basically waiting for my power down, and that's it. And then shortly after, a group of people called Steam Hunt. Are you familiar with the website Product Hunt?
Yep.
They made a clone of it, basically ripped off the idea and made a product called Steam Hunt,
Got
where
it.
a bunch of spammers would spam plagiarists and they would just copy things or low effort posts, and then Steam Hunt would use Steam.it delegation to upvote them. It was mostly a farming and spamming operation, but they had an airdrop over a year ago where they gave out tokens 1-to-1 with what you owned on Steam, and they went ahead and stole those tokens from the community. That anybody that went to Hive or voted on Hive, they stole those tokens from people. Myself, I lost 100 and something thousand tokens in that.
Right.
They basically made it so you can't withdraw them. So at that point, I was completely done with Steam.
And who has control over Steam Hunt? Is this the same people that have control over Steam.it, or is this a separate?
No, this is a DApp that was on there, run by Project 7 and Tubras. And they decided they were going to blacklist anybody that went to Hive and steal their tokens.
Were they working with Justin Sun and the Tron Foundation on this? Why would they?
They
what was their motive?
Why? Because they just revenge. They were unhappy that they didn't get an airdrop. A lot of let me rewind a little bit. A lot of animosity going on, and a lot of reasons why this happened is when we forked off of Hive, we chose not to give tokens to Justin Sun or anybody that basically voted to centralize and take over Steam.
Got it. Okay.
And that's where a lot of the stress came from, and they're acting in revenge. They're trying to take revenge on us for not giving them free tokens.
Right.
They claim we stole tokens from them, but what we did is we took the least path of least hostility.
Right.
We made a fork that went in a different direction. It was a copy of Steam and said, okay, we're going to build our own. It's like having a Word document, and we took another copy of it, and then we started editing our document.
Totally.
And left their document completely untouched. But they were unhappy that they didn't get the free tokens that we gave to users that didn't take over Steam. And they wanted those free Hive tokens so they can dump them and sell them.
Wow.
And then Justin Sun said we stole millions of tokens from them, and we didn't, because those tokens never existed. They were made when we created the new blockchain.
Right.
And we're free to choose who we give tokens to.
Totally.
We don't have to give tokens to people that took over the old blockchain.
Right.
And we chose we used a programmatic way of deciding who even had a way for them to get the tokens if they made a proposal and the community voted it, saying, yeah, you should probably get your tokens. We gave a path to do that.
Right. So in many ways, this is blockchain, protocols working exactly as they should. If a community is not happy with the way a current protocol is being run, it's built into the system that the whole point of this, well, not the whole point. Well, a big point is that a fork of like-minded community members can choose to form their own off of the previous community. So this, in many ways, this is exactly the whole point of why people are invested in protocols and why they feel they're important. So do you feel that this is the system working? That you and your other community members were able fairly easily able to spin up on Hive?
Yeah, I believe the hard fork is similar to like Ethereum Classic. They went
Totally.
off in a different direction. We chose to go in a different direction. You don't see people that on Ethereum Classic saying, "Oh, they split off. We're going to steal all their Ethereum."
Right.
That's just basically what happened. Was
Right.
they said, "Oh, they decided to fork in a different direction and basically leave our platform." And in fact, one of the times they were saying that they were mad at us because we left and destabilized their infrastructure because we removed our equipment. And they said we had promises that we were going to go on forever, and that's not true. We decided to go in a different direction. We voted no confidence. We didn't trust them anymore, and we built our own system.
Totally.
We made a hard fork that split off into a different direction and became completely independent at that point. So at that point, nothing that went on Hive had any effect on what went on Steem.
Right. Okay. So besides you and these other community members building up Hive and trying to make that what Steem.it used to be, what else is on your to-do list? Are you going to seek legal action? Are you thinking? Is there anything else you and the community on Hive want to accomplish besides build Hive?
We're 100% focused on building Hive. What happens with this is still up in the air.
Right.
We're still trying to figure out and wrap our heads around it, because this is something that should never have happened. It never happens. This is the first.
Right.
They basically flat out ran a $7 million theft scam, and what's interesting is they're saying whoever took those tokens and sent them to Bittrex stole those tokens. Trying to get them back to rightful owners. They're saying that the money you stole, somebody stole from us.
Right.
Which is what they've pulled before too.
Totally. This is an incredible story. I want to ask, how are you personally feeling? Are you feeling hopeful about what you're doing with Hive? Are you feeling discouraged about what's happened with Steem.it? Do you feel like a lot of your years of your work building up a platform is now for naught?
I was really frustrated with Steem. I put a lot of effort into it. I was one of the most active users on Steem. I was present, passionate, and I was a very high. I was a very active blogger. I'm not a blogger by chance, and I hate blogging, but I was very active, engaging with other people, and all that was destroyed and erased, and I was very frustrated. When I went to Hive, I basically stopped caring about Steem. At that point, I knew that nothing good will happen, and I felt that there was no sense putting any effort into it. So I started working on Hive, and I was really excited because we have more developers than we had on Steem. We had the same developers, but they had no reason to contribute to Steem. They just were doing their own projects. Once we branched off on Hive, now we have no person responsible for it, so we have to do it ourselves, and they all stepped up. And it's really amazing what's happening, where we have a lot of people taking part in this, and changes are happening faster. The hard fork to Hive was the first hard fork that I saw in the 3 years I was there that went through without any downtime and without any issues.
Wow.
It was very smooth. So I was really excited about that. I had a lot of confidence that one of the metrics I use, a litmus test, is never happened. I use it as a test that I feel on Hive, those will come real soon. Whereas on Steem, I don't think they'll ever come.
Right.
I don't even think they have no developers that do any blockchain. They lost everybody. There's no talent left there. All the talent left and went to Hive. I see no way they can implement SMTs. And that was a big part, is when I originally left, when I had no ill will against Steem, and I had no problems with them being successful. The moment I originally left, before all the freezing happened,
right,
I felt that one of the key tests for me were who is going to develop faster, who's going to build and make the blockchain better and innovate. And I saw no future of innovation on Steem. The only innovation Steem has done since we left in the 3 months was censoring accounts and stealing funds.
right.
That's the only changes they have made. Whereas Hive has already made numerous changes, and we actually made some big improvements, and there's some big improvements coming, and it's exciting. Whereas I had none of that on Steem. For the last 6 months of Steem, before this, even Justin Sun stepped in, I was getting really depressed and down, and I was feeling like because Ned wasn't really doing anything, and so many promises of stuff, but everything was going so slow. I just gave up on it. I was like, it was really hard. I used to do a show. I used to do a 2-hour show every Wednesday on air, and I stopped doing it because I just lost all hope on Steam. And
Right.
this was prior to Hive and prior to Justin. It was getting harder and harder for me to do my show because I just didn't have it in me anymore, because it just felt so hopeless. And then Justin's son came along and made it 10 times worse.
Do you have a message to Justin's son if you were listening right now? What would you say to him?
Nothing really. I'm rather have somebody put him in jail or something, but
Right.
I don't have anything to say to him. It doesn't matter. It does not like he cares anyways.
Right. And what would you say to the Hive community that you're building now, and the kind of this new frontier? What would you say to that community?
Not much. I'm very active in there, so they know how I feel about things, and
Nice.
I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the changes and where we're going, and I love to see how things have progressed. One of the things, for example, Steam was a predominantly English-speaking community, and there was a large Korean community. There's a large German community, but trending was mostly an English-speaking thing. Trending is
Right.
all the top posts,
Right.
the front page. Now it's like 80-90% Korean.
Right.
So you could see the changes happen already on Steam, and those posts are getting crazy amounts of rewards, huge circle jerk, which means everyone is voting each other.
Right. Right.
Stuff that's going on right now, and you could see the changes happening, and you can see all the witnesses are all Korean and Chinese. It's basically being taken over
Right.
right now, and it's disappointing, but I've pretty much gave up on Steam, and all I want to do is power down and leave. And they took that away from me by taking the 170,000 Steam I had on my account and basically nullifying it, basically deleting it.
Right.
This is not a protocol that's in the blockchain. There's no protocol to take money from people's wallets. They added that functionality to basically take it out and remove it.
Right. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you coming on here and setting the record straight with a lot of this stuff. I think it's important that this story is told, because we're still at the beginning of this S curve with cryptocurrency and blockchain. We're still trying new things, we're building new things, and things like this are going to happen. And it's awesome that you and some others are investing all yourselves into Hive now, because that's how blockchain is supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to fork. You're supposed to be able to take your community elsewhere when you see your current community being tainted or going the wrong direction. So, MarkyMark, thank you for all your work, all your work on building up Steem.it, and hopefully now those learnings can go into Hive. And I wish you and everyone else the best of luck. And I look forward to following your story and the Hive story, because I think it's super, super interesting. So best of luck, brother.
Thanks, man.
Right on. Okay, everyone. I'm just going to let's see here. I'm going to transition here to just wrap that up. So that foundation acquisition of Steem.it and all that unfolded after that, the funds being seized, Hive hard fork happening, very, very interesting story. Cryptocurrency is the Wild West right now, and things like this are going to happen, and it's very interesting to follow. And I really appreciate MarkyMark opening up about that. I didn't even know this was going on until a few days ago, and I was super interested in the story. So MarkyMark, thank you for coming on. And wow, Wild West, very, very interesting. I look forward to following this. Okay, thanks everyone.